Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the One's Ready podcast. We're going to do something a little bit different today. What we're going to do is we're going to show you a training event, kind of at the front, just all the way through so that you guys can watch it. And then following that, we are going to kind of give our thoughts and a breakdown, not a breakdown of the training event, like, hey, these guys did this wrong or did they do this right? It's more of, hey, here's what's going on kind of procedurally with our standard operating procedures, any kind of tactics, techniques, and procedures, or just kind of what's going on in our head as we're, going under canopy or whatever it is. So that's what you can expect from this video. But before we get into that, make sure you check out attackelite.com. Those guys, and hey, I wonder if some of these folks got some of their equipment from Tac Elite. Maybe not. They probably just walked into Supply and got it, but maybe Supply ordered it from them. But if you do need some equipment for your training needs, instead of piecemealing everything together, attackelite.com, one place, one-stop shop. Use the promo code One's Ready, get yourself a discount. And then while you're training with those guys, you could also check out, 18 Alpha Fitness with Kevin. What do you think, Trent?
I mean, I guess if you want to be fit and have the right equipment to train with before you step into the pipeline, it's an okay idea. I mean, if you want to get trained by the person that's seen the pipeline, has been through pipelines, and has a really high success rate, and also have the right equipment, I don't know. Like, it's your life, but it would be a good recommendation in my book. That's just what I think.
Have we ever had a passive aggressive ad read before? Because now we have. 18 Alpha Fitness. That code is One Ready over at 18 Alpha Fitness. So go check out Coach Edge. Like Trent was saying, like, you want to be physically prepared. You want to have all the gear that you're supposed to. Go check out attackelite.com. Use our code at both spots and actually prepare yourself to do a little something like a PR training mission or a full mission profile, what we call it, which is what we're about to jump into here.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. I'm digging this. All right, so now we're going to get into it. Enjoy the video.
we are inside of this sweet aircraft getting ready to go. This is always a fun time for everybody. If you're not the jump master, you're sitting there just waiting to go, waiting for somebody to tell you to go. And as you start walking towards the back of that aircraft, literally a million things are going through your mind. Anybody can talk about all the jumps that they want. You can have 10,000 jumps. Every single jump as you're leaving the aircraft, you're like, oh boy, here we go.
It's one of those things, right? There's so much to think about beforehand. But for me, as soon as I start walking, there's like this huge relief. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah,
like you've done all the prep, you've done all these other things, and you've done it. You've been trained. So once you actually start walking towards that, it's nice to be able to get focused. And you only, have like one or two things on your mind at a time. You start going down that checklist. Before then, it's like making sure I have all those things for that checklist. Like making sure I'm ready for everything that's about to happen. But once you step into like step one of the actual, full mission profile, it's nice to start checking things off that and actually have one thing to focus on at a time.
Yeah, and the part that we're not seeing in this, at least just because of the point of view from whoever's wearing the camera, is that you're not seeing all the work that the jump master's doing at the back of the aircraft on the ramp, because he is busy. Like he's been doing a lot of the mission planning, at least for the jump. Depending on who the jump master is, he could have been doing mission planning for the actual operation as well.
Yeah, but be the team leader.
At least this point. Yeah. Because generally that person is going to be higher rank because they've just been in long enough. They've got more training, more certification. I don't like certifications, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Did you guys notice the other bundle that's over to the right hand side of the aircraft?
Yeah, the RAM.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So that's it used to be called a RAMS, R-A-M-Z, Rigging Alternate Method Zodiac, but then they changed it to Rigging Alternate Method Boat. There was an iteration. There was a weird time in here where one of the new pubs got put out and they called it a Rambo, and everybody made fun of it so bad, like they shamed it so bad that they stopped calling it that. They shortened it to RAMB. So it's a gravity released load, which means it's tied into the aircraft. You basically tie it so it's the way that we throw a boat out of the aircraft, or really anything else. The rescue community, ST community, is known for if it can fall, we can rig a parachute to it and throw it out of an aircraft. So this is kind of how we get the boat there. I did want to hit the jump master portion. We talk a lot about, people ask, okay, I want to be Green Beret, Special Forces, medic, sniper, all of these extra quals. Like, you guys don't understand how stressful it is just to be the jump master, just to be a team member on this thing. Like, just on a simple, you're not doing anything other than putting a rig on and jumping out of an aircraft. That is stressful enough. I don't know how many times I have pointed out of a door and then I go to jump myself. And because I've been so busy, I'm like, wait, did I get a check? Am I good? Is this jump going to be good for me? Because I've been so worried about just being the jump master. So there's definitely that feeling. So, kind of, as we go through this video, I think we stop, around 30 seconds in or something. As we're going through this video, look how long we've talked about a simple thing, right? Just jumping out of an aircraft. And I say just jumping out of an aircraft, but look how many things have gone into it just in the short 30 seconds that we have gone through. So try to, as you are walking through this video, think about all of the things that you have to do. And we just barely got under canopy. We just barely looked up and saw a round chute above our head and looked around and cleared our airspace to make sure that we weren't going to run into one of our friends. That's it. 30 seconds in, and we've already talked about jump master procedures, how we're going to throw the equipment out, what it is that we're looking for once we get under canopy, and it's a lot. So, when we talk,
it does look like the jump master was staying on board. He's So he's
and that's one of those things,
monkey harness.
Yeah, that's one of those things too that people don't necessarily realize. If I'm the leader of this thing, like if I'm the enlisted leader and I'm working with an officer, the last thing I want to do is be the jump master as well. I want to have somebody else be the jump master, like one of my trusted JMs, especially if it's a high risk mission or if it's a tough jump or if we're doing an offset. I don't want to have to do that planning. I want to have one person that can focus specifically on that, and I'll look at that JM and I'll say, just get me out of the plane. Get me on target, and then we'll go from there. And you have so many other things, that's why on the teams you have navigators that are planning your route, whether that be on vehicles or if there's an overland or if you're in the water or whatever. You have specific people that are divvied out. I think there's this misconception because people ask all the time, well, what if I'm an SR guy on a rescue mission? What am I doing? Am I just holding security? No, dude, you're route planning. You're coming up with a security plan. You're coming up with a logistics plan. You're figuring out how we get resupply. Like you have to do, you might be the jump master. You have to figure out all of these things.
It's not my job. It's not my job.
Not my job, dog.
Can we talk about how easy they make it look to walk in the fens too?
Well, they're wearing the short fins. I will say they're wearing those like the short ones. Like
They are duck walking though. They are.
yeah, a little bit.
Just like, just like all the little things that make this more difficult than what it looks like. You're like, oh, these guys just like step out of the plane. It's like, well, also they're thinking about you have to walk with the fins a certain way so that
Right.
you don't want to face plant on the ramp. You know what I mean? Which is a real possibility.
Right.
Not because it's embarrassing, but because you got a whole train of dudes behind you that are like, we got to go.
We got to get out. Yeah.
And the longer you wait to get out the plane is more swimming you got to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's what, because now you're farther and farther away from where you need to be. So those last guys, so planning wise, if you can, if you're looking at swimming, right, you would put me up front and probably put Aaron as the very last person because he's faster, because you're going to be waiting a long time for me to actually make it to the boat.
Right. Yeah. And that's the point of this too. The way that the way this works is you throw the boat out and then you chase the boat. If there's a huge delay for what you guys are doing, that is bad news. If there's any drift, if there's any, and there's always current in the ocean, right? So despite what they will tell you at dive school, winds, waves, and tides 100% affect a combat swimmer. You might not get to that boat. Yeah, I know, right? I know. Jeez. Newsflash, everybody. But you might not get to that boat, and that's the point. You got to get to that boat, and you got to start opening that bad boy up. So
it's your lifeline.
That is. That's the only thing.
The boat's your lifeline, and it's also the whole reason you're there is that so that you can grab that boat to get to rescue or whatever that mission is.
Yeah.
Jeez.
100%.
All right. Cool. Well, now we'll start playing.
Yeah, so there's a lot of time of these dudes coming down under canopy here, and it might look, you can see the jumper looking around and starting to grab toggles and starting to steer the canopy. So this is a round canopy, right? It's not as steerable as the square canopy that we use. So a couple ways that we can employ. So this is obviously a static line round deployment. People don't understand that the chute that he's jumping, it looks like an SF-10 because it has the toggles on it. These things they're steerable-ish. Right? They're not a precision chute, but you can still drive it. Mistakes that early jumpers make as they jump out under these round canopies and they're just like, well, I guess I'm just going into wherever I'm going. You got to drive that chute from the second that it opens up to the second that your feet touch the ground or the water. And you can actually get pretty close. There's still a way to jump close as a team under a static line chute. And you can see that that's what they're doing here, right? He's looking around. He's starting to figure out where his jumpers are. He's starting to figure out where the boat is and where he's supposed to be going in the water. You have to watch out for other jumpers. Collisions under canopy are terrifying, essentially because the way the physics works, if you put your canopy underneath another canopy, you will both lose lift. He will lose lift into your chute, collapse your chute, and then that is a bad day over the North Sea. So the other thing that you can kind of see here, just before he starts getting into the water, you'll see him sort of like, you can see him open his chute up and like his reserve. So and Peaches, you can talk through that.
Well, I mean, yeah, he's getting ready to enter water because once you have that rig that is meant to keep you inside it. So not a great thing if you enter the water, because then you're dealing with all kinds of material. Like if there's not a current, which there always is, especially in the North Sea. But depending on how that chute lands, it could land right on top of you. Now you're dealing with all those cords, the parachute cords, which there's a lot of them and they're long. You got the canopy and it just can become a tangled mess. And it's water. You could drown. So you got to make sure that you're ready to hit the water and exit that harness. So he's undoing his reserve and his belly band and stuff like that. So he's held in by leg straps and a chest strap at this point, after he's already undone his waistband with the reserve. He probably has LPUs on, or life preserving units on, that are like little they're like little Coke cans or beer cans, and then you just pull the toggle on them, and they're attached to the rig itself, and they'll inflate due to a CO2 cartridge. That way that we can recover the chutes and that kind of stuff, because these are, in an operation, sure, they're one-time use. Not in training. That gets a little expensive. So,
right.
But in his mind, he's going through the checklist. He's keeping an eye on where everybody's at in the air so he doesn't collide. He's looking at where the boat is as he's prepping, going like, okay, I got to make sure that I've got my chest strap done. Because what's going to happen when he hits the water is he's already going to have that chest strap undone, and he's going to have those toggles. Move in so the camera makes sure. And he's going to still kind of not flare, but give a little bit. And then as he's about to hit the water, he's taking, so that when his toes hit the water, he is unfastening the leg straps so that he could just kind of slip right out. Because I know from experience, the North Sea, like if that parachute goes under the water and catches a current, like it's going to take you for a ride underwater. So it's important to get out of that rig.
And if you look, we're right at about 229, 230 in the video, what we're referencing here. So he just hits the water. You can see that this is a beautiful day. There's a pretty cool shot of the Osprey that they hovering above him. But the wind wasn't really that bad, right? So there wasn't a whole lot of wind. The problem is if you don't get out of that chute right away, that chute can also catch wind and can start dragging you through. One of the worst jumps I ever had under a static line chute, we were getting ready to go to Iceland. So we were doing a bunch of static line rams, getting ready to go because that's what we were going to do in Iceland, holding this alert. But we had to jump in Lake Mead in Vegas, and it was the wintertime, and the winds were exceptionally high. So fun fact, you can jump up to 25 knots worth of wind, which is a crap ton of wind as long as you're jumping into the water, right? So we were jumping in, and I don't know if it was at 25, but it was extremely close. So it was, 18, 20 knots. We jump out. The first thing that happened, the Rams has two chutes, right? So when we fold up a boat, the Ram B, when we fold up a boat, it sits in a big box. You don't just throw the boat out on its own. There's a specially made box where the transom sits, and it's attached to the engine, and it's got its own scuba tank that you use it to inflate it. You have a foot pump too. There's a way to inflate it manually, but if everything goes right, you hook the scuba tank up to the boat, and then you take it out of the box. There's a couple straps that you have to take off, but you're doing this in the water. So there we were jumping, very high winds. We throw the Ram out, and immediately it loses one of its chutes. Because of the opening shock, it actually ripped one of the chutes off. So now this thing just goes straight down. And all of us are like, oh no, that's bad. So it goes down. But because, like what we were saying, we have fins on and there's 8 of us and there's a delay. And now this thing isn't drifting nicely. It's just basically going straight down. Now we know, oh no, we got to get to this boat. And this is going to be a bad day. I hit the water. And as soon as I hit the water, my chute didn't deflate or go into I wasn't able to get out of it. And I was just pulled through. Lake Mead, it's a lake, right? But that means that there's no real, in the ocean, things roll. Even in rough seas, there's a rhythm to it. Like it might suck and it might be big seas, but there's a rhythm. In a lake, it's like a washing machine because the waves are bouncing off of the shore and there's no conceivable pattern to anything. So I'm just getting drug face down through these things. It felt like, if a wave goes like this, I felt like I was going directly out of like half of a wave and into the other half of the wave. And just for a second, I was like, is this how I die? Is this it? Like in Lake Mead?
In Lake Mead.
In Lake Mead. So that was a sporty one. Good thing didn't happen here. So, at 2:29 of the video, it kind of flashes to this gentleman gets out of his rig. It's nice. He's got a hold of it. He didn't lose his parachute, which is good. And then we get into the boat and we start moving into that boat. That's where you see the cool shot of that Osprey at really 244, 245 area. And then we start moving on and we start searching for this simulated casualty, which is the whole point of the mission, right? Throw a boat out, get all of our friends into that boat. Couple of cool guy shots of dudes riding on the Zodiac, and then we start looking for our boy.
Yeah, I think to wrap up under canopy, there's a million things you got to do. Like you exit the aircraft, and it might hurt a little bit, but you're looking for it's like treating a patient, right? You have like that checklist, and you have like things like in a rotation where you check your canopy, check your position, check your equipment, make sure you're still heading the right direction, and then keep checking everything. Check for your buddies, make sure everybody's in the right place, and then get ready to hit the water. There's a lot of things you gotta be thinking about and doing until you hit that water, and then a whole new checklist starts.
Yeah. I was going to say, it doesn't stop there. It just continues on. You're right. It is kind of like a whole checklist as you're going through. As we're going through in this video, as they're on the boat, if there was ever any question about rotor wash from a CV-22,
you see it right here.
Yeah. Because these are not waves. This is all being generated. All this, turbulence and everything. All these wakes are from the CV-22.
Yeah. And you can kind of see it too. You can see the, as the rotor wash is blowing it, like you can see it's a very distinct pattern towards the boat. You can see these guys just absolutely fighting through it. And by the way, it's so strong. Like that'll inhibit the boat's ability. You might think, well, it's an engine and, it's a big boat. It's fine. No, being under a CV-22, like I've done this mission before. I've been under CV-22 in the North Sea, probably the exact same drop zone that they're at.
Yep.
Awful. It is awful. There is just no way for the CV-22 to be. It's different than a 60 and even a 47. A 60 and a 47, you can kind of find a sweet spot underneath those aircraft, and it's really not that bad. 60s are easily doable. 47s get a little bit sporty because they generate a lot of down rotor wash, but the CV-22 is ridiculous. The first time I was under a CV-22, I was shocked. I was like, holy crap. And then under the water was really, really tough. Really tough.
Yeah, that's where the whole water confidence thing comes in, because in a situation like this, you can't, because it is going to blow the absolute hell out of you.
Yeah.
100%. I mean, with the 53s, you had that like little cone right underneath it.
Right.
Things were okay. Like it was chaos, but like you were okay. Like, but if you get pushed out to the edge of the group and you get outside of that cone, it's like, good luck. Good luck getting back in here, bro.
Good. Because you'd be walking and you'd be leaning at a 45-degree angle, trying to power through that even on land. It'd be terrible. My favorite of all time too was watching somebody that wasn't really paying attention, and they would be like, "Oh, I'm just gonna face away from the aircraft for just a second," and then watch them just get bent. Like if you were not on a knee prepared for that, or if it was the first time you'd ever done it, watching people just get ragdolled. Like you always hope your buddy's okay, but sometimes that shit's funny.
So speaking of that, I mean, nobody's going to know where it was or whatever. Did you see the video going around of the 60 delivering Santa in this past, 2022? And pilot got a little too close to the crowd, and then kids just...
Now listen, I hope the kids are okay.
The kids are okay.
If you can't laugh at that, like get out of here.
The kids are okay, but the empty strollers went rolling. Yeah. There were parents on the ground. There were kids on the ground, like kind of jumping on top of their kids. Pretty damn funny. Not saying that I saw it or was there. I'm just throwing it out there.
Like come in like full tactical flare on that thing.
No, he came in. They were delivering Santa, and he was coming down. I actually hadn't seen it. I don't know if they had kind of put a break in the hoist or whatever, but he came in hanging.
Oh,
like
yeah.
It wasn't a rappel. It was working off some kind of hoist brake system.
Yeah. Well, so that's
you
that's
probably know what
common.
it is. Is it?
Yeah. So it's actually pretty common. I don't think I can say the name of it. Is the name of the TTP protected? I won't say it. So essentially there is a way that you can hook up to the hoist, and as the helicopter is flying in, they try to time it. So they're letting you out and you're sort of flying your body on the hoist. So you're hard hooked into the hoist, and then they're letting you go. The idea is that you hit the ground, you hook the survivor up. It's for like let's say there's a pilot that punched out and he's just there with his thumb up and he's like, "Hey man, can I get a ride?" They basically time it. So they try to get the J to the ground. And the second that he hits the ground, he hooks him up, grab him, and then they're off.
And they're out.
And then they hoist him up. It's a very fast way to do it. So it is a TTP. There have been times where you'll be settling into target. And a lot of times the PJ, if you're going to just send one down for this scenario or hypothetical, no kidding, he's leaning out the door, hooked onto the hoist. And then he's looking at the special mission aviator. And when they're ready, as they're settled in, he's like, "Okay, let's go." And they'll try to go boop and then just go out. It's when it works well, it works well. But when you have too much hoist, I've also seen dudes that,
Get drugged.
helicopters, they're not perfect. They don't remain in a perfect stable hover, like, at 100 feet or, 50 feet or whatever they're going to hoist from. Every once in a while, there's a little bit of a burble up and down. I've definitely seen that burble go 10 feet closer to the ground and watch a PJ just absolutely smash into the ground, like roll. And then you're hooked onto a helicopter.
So now you get yanked up.
Exactly. And then they're trying to, like, the special mission aviator's trying to do what he can do to help. Sometimes that's all he can do is like pull you back up. So then you're just like dangling as you're trying to figure out what's going on. So,
oh my God,
when it works good, it looks
not service related. Is what it sounds like.
Yeah, don't worry.
Sorry, your claim is denied.
Thanks, VA. 10%. When it works good, it's sexy as hell. But when it does not work, it is the worst, the absolute worst. The only thing it makes you so mad too, because when you get back into the helicopter, you're like, what the fuck was that, man? What are we doing here?
Is that only on the rescue side? Because we've never done that in ST.
It's really common on the rescue side. I mean, again, there's an actual TTP in the 3-3. It's not in the 3-1. So in the 3-3, it's 100%. It's actually in the 3 series for the 60s. Like, it's in the recovery procedures.
I would love to see them, like, they'll, for whatever reason, have a combat controller on board. And they're like, hey, man, we're going to hook you up and you're going to go down there. We'd be all like, what are you talking about?
I'm going to let you
No.
Right. So
Jays are like, yeah, cool.
Yeah, the helicopter can also, this can also happen in a really slow, deliberate manner, like where the helicopter can like park over top of your thing, and then you can hoist the dude down, and then hoist the dude back up, and then you can leave. But when the crews work really well together, there's definitely time to be like, oh, okay, boop, and back.
Saves a lot of time.
It does.
Boy, we got off on a tangent there.
We did. Yeah, sorry. So if we go, right. Speaking of hoists and stuff, here at 336, underneath this spinny, choppy, dual tilt rotor device that's above our head, we can see the guy grabbing for the cable. So the cable and the hoist has already been extended into the water. So the CV-22 is hovering over top of the patient. You can see at 336, they drag the hoist into the boat, right? And it's hooked up to the device. You see there's a strop and the device, and everybody starts playing this cable game. We want to pause right here because it's like 340-ish, 345.
Yep.
So there's a long piece of steel cable that's attached to an aircraft that is at a hoist that can pull 600 pounds up. This is a huge safety issue. Huge safety issue. Anytime you're working in the water with a hoist, you have to worry about where is that cable. Because if that cable becomes wrapped around you for whatever reason, and they start pulling that cable up, the steel cable is going to beat your soft little body every single time. So you see, as they start bringing this cable in, there is one dude, and his whole job is to put 2 hands on that cable, look at the aircraft, and then look back and make sure that he knows where everything is. Because the second that there's slack in the water in that cable, bad news bears, man. Absolutely terrifying.
And you just talked about it with the burble. Like a helicopter, whether it's a CV-22 or 60 or whatever, it is not a solid hover. There's some variation in there, if you will. So, there's going to be a lot of slack, and then there's going to be very little slack. So if you have it wrapped around you, there is a PJ out there, or retired PJ, that lost his thumb because just a little section of it got wrapped around.
Yep.
You're going to lose it, and it's going to happen so fast. You have no idea what just happened.
Right. And if you look at great example of this, like 405 to 410, you will literally see. So they're working the problem in the boat. So the end of the cable is in the boat, and they're hooking people up to it to get ready to hoist out of this boat. Right. They're doing like a little underway is what it's called. And you can see at 410, that cable is flapping in the wind, in the rotor wash behind the boat. And good on the operators in this one. Yeah. Everybody is well aware of where that hoist is, because it, again, one of the most dangerous things. Imagine doing this at night.
I was just about to say, like, this is why at night it's crazy.
Well, and doing it without the boat too just adds like another level of complexity when it's just dudes in the water. And like when that cable goes in the water and you're telling them to like bring it back up because you're losing sight of where that cable's going. I don't know. I think we talked about this part of it before we did the first training I ever did on it more than anything else. Like, it's like, you're going to do this. You're going to do this. Okay, here, like, when this
Right.
cable comes down, like everybody, like that is the only thing that matters. It's I don't know. It was terrible.
There's definitely it's not my job thing, dude.
Right.
This is going to kill somebody really fast.
It's everybody's job at that point.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, from experience, it's hard enough doing this in the daylight on land with really experienced PJs, or, really experienced operators. There was still always, like, the most experienced dude. That guy was usually like, okay, I'm the safety man. You guys worry about hooking yourself up to the hoist. I will worry about the cable. Because even the best air crews, the best, most experienced operators, usually the most dangerous part of what we're doing here, which is, hoisting. And especially when you add, the water into it, and when you add boats and other swimmers and all these other things, exceptionally tough and dangerous.
Yeah. I think, you watch this video and it's so clean. Everything that happened, like it's such a clean
good job.
exercise or iteration that, like, it's difficult for us to not look at this and be like, guys, like, there are 8 million things that can go wrong at every stage along this process. So, like, it's a great video, but understand how difficult it is to do what they're doing right now and making it look, fairly simple.
Yeah.
They really did
between
do
the
a good
three
job.
of us, I mean, yeah, imagine talking through all the bad things that could happen. Like Peaches, I think at this DZ, wasn't that your cutaway? Wasn't that your... Yeah. Right.
Very familiar with this, DZ.
Yeah, exactly. And then, me, I had a hoist issue where we were working at night, same sort of thing. It was in San Diego, but we were doing hoisting. I hook my, I was hard hooked into the hoist. It was nighttime. It was very terrifying because I'm always afraid of everything. We're in the ocean. We get the thumbs up. We start going through the hoist, which is what we're going to look at next. The next thing here is they give the thumbs up. Well, it turns out that a strap on the strop. So there's a thing that we use called the rescue strap, right? It's essentially a padded belt that is a friction adapter device, and you can throw it over a survivor and then hold them. So my survivor was another PJ. I throw the strap over him. When the hoist got tensioned, it turns out that the strap actually failed. And I saw it, like, feeding through the friction adapter device. So now I'm being pulled up to the helicopter, and I physically had to, like, put this dude in guard and just hug the crap out of him. Because as we got pulled out of the water, the only thing that was attaching him to the hoist was the strap. We figured this out about halfway up a 50-foot hoist. So as we get to the helicopter, I'm like, hey, I'm the only thing holding this dude right now. Like, I am physically hugging him right now. You have to drag me into the helicopter. Like, there's a procedure when you get to the helicopter and you're rescuing a patient, where you grab onto the inside, you give a little head nod to the special missions aviator, and then you guys work to get yourself into the helicopter. Then you hook everybody in. I could not do that. I couldn't let go of him. So I had him in, like, my full guard, like my legs were crying, and I'm crushing this dude. Like, it was uncomfortable for him, but I was terrified because I was like, if I let this, if this guy slips, like, he's leaving, and I'm going to have to watch him from the hoist fall, most likely to his death. So I was like, okay, tight, no big deal. But yeah, to highlight what Pete just said here, and Trent, you too, great point. Like, these guys are crushing it. They're doing everything well, but there's a million things that can go wrong. So
the one thing about the hoist being pulled up is you see it in a lot of these kind of, like, fail army videos or whatever, where they start spinning really, really fast. And one thing that I learned from it was I'll just I don't want to mention their names, but I will anyway. Doug Iwaniki and Steve May. Is that as if you're rescuing somebody, you got them holding on, they're strapped in, except for you when you were holding that guy, but you can actually kind of, as a like a windbreaker kind of thing, however it is, you can almost counter a spin different ways. And it's funny because you'll see a PJ, like, just, or whoever's running that, just kind of doing weird things, but they're keeping that counter spin, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
I was just going back to your situation though. Man, that is a good thing that you guys were not spinning, because if you guys started spinning, there's no way you could have kept that in, and he just
well. First of all, I'm very strong. How dare you?
Yeah.
No, you're definitely right. Yeah, like, and again, like, thank goodness, it was a pretty short hoist. It wasn't really that far because we were doing night operations, so we were trying to mitigate risk as much as we could. But yeah. 100%. You start adding some centrifugal force on that bad boy, and that is a bad night. Actually, there's a Crow friend of mine. They were doing a training. He's a retired Crow now, old BC. They were doing a training iteration, and he was the live patient in the Skedco. So they're hoisting a litter. They didn't have a tagline, or they thought it was like short enough where they could get so a tagline is physically a line that you attach to a litter, and a guy on the ground holds that line so that you can manage the litter as it's going up, right? So I think you're supposed to have, I think the TTPs have changed where now you have to have one every single time. But there have been times where, you know, you don't have a tagline, your tagline breaks, something happens. Well, BC, a live person, was in this Skedco, and almost immediately at like 10 feet, he starts to spin. He was spinning so hard that his there's a very famous picture. His eyeballs completely blacked out. Like he's got like these, you know, pretty bright blue eyes, good looking dude. I don't know why we're always talking about good looking dudes on this podcast, but another good looking dude. But his eyeballs were just completely, it broke every single blood vessel in his eye. He looked terrifying. Like when you see the picture of it, you're like, oh my God. But it was spinning him so bad that it burst all the blood vessels in the whites of his eyes. It was pretty crazy.
You'll see the same dudes that get caught with doing a free fall with a ruck that slips on them.
Yeah.
And they're not.
Blood vessels are popping in their eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they either, it was so bad that they couldn't counter it, or they just were maybe so new that they didn't know how to counter it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
that gets away from you pretty quick, man, especially in free fall. You know, when you get out, you start spinning and you're trying to figure out what's going on. Like
Dive,
you're
bro.
falling
Just dive.
Yeah. You're falling at terminal velocity. You better figure that out super quick.
yeah. You
because
get come out and one of those Pelican clips cuts off, and that's just, man. Yeah.
You riding it, baby.
Yeah. So going back to the video, I'm at least at like 5:30. They're pulling them into the CV-22 now.
I wanted to talk about the point where they were all giving the thumbs up, and talk about how difficult it is for the air crew to see what's going on down there. Like that bird is moving, the boat is moving, the cable's all over the place. So like you see these guys giving the thumbs up multiple times and multiple people doing it. Like I understand that it's a dynamic situation, and that air crew, like they're trying to see what's going on, they're trying to do the right thing, but like it's not perfect. Like there's rotor wash everywhere, there's things going on. And so that the patience and to do things the right way and to have your arms straight out all the way up, making big motions like that communication is critical. So
yeah,
it's a lot going on.
Well, and it really speaks to like, there's little stuff that we do in the pipeline that people don't understand. And we're like, listen, your attention to detail and to be able to do this procedure perfectly every single time is important. You may think, well, it's just a stupid hand signal. I had a team leader of mine absolutely smack the dog shit out of my helmet. And he was like, get your arm out. Up and down, huge motion. Because if you think about it, this CV-22 is well over 100 feet. I don't know what this hoist is. Usually it's CV-22s usually try to hoist over 100 feet, and it's usually as high as 150. Like I've done I think 200 feet is the highest hoist you can do on a CV-22 before you start running out of cable. I want to say it's like a 250 foot cable. But it's usually over 100 because the rotor wash is so bad, you can't really do it any lower than that. So from 100 feet over the water, a regular human with their eyeballs, they're not using like binoculars. They're looking out over a ramp, trying to figure out if you are just moving around in the boat or if you're actually ready for pickup. So, and then that person physically controls the hoist, like hits a button to get you up there. And oh, by the way, the person that controls the hoist knows that he can kill you if you're not ready to go and he hits the button too soon. So there is a host of stuff going on, like those backenders, the load masters, the special mission aviators, the gunners, they have a lot of and a pilot is trying to hold the hover exactly where it is, because that can be dangerous too if the aircraft is moving around.
Oh yeah, we didn't even talk about that.
Yeah, like they're physically hovering. Some of the newer helicopters can like auto hover, and they're legit. They can hover within like a foot in GPS space. That's tight. 22s don't have that. Those people are physically looking out in a sea, a literal sea with no references, and they're trying to keep the aircraft still in 3D worth of space. And other people are hanging on to that aircraft below 150 feet below it.
He's up there looking at you, but also on comms with the pilot, trying to give them corrections, trying to let them know what's going on. Like the person up in the bird also has like 800 things happening at the same time. So, to Aaron's point, there's a reason that we're so crazy about doing things the right way.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you actually step back and look at all the things that each one of those, we talked about it with Snooki with the CRM, the crew resource management. It's huge. I mean, sometimes it fails, right? Because there's some things that you get complacent. You're like, oh, we'll just athlete our way through these, which a lot of things you can as a crew or as an operator, athlete your way through things. But a lot of the regs and TTPs and SOPs that we use, those 3-3s and that kind of stuff, are all kind of written in blood. And I know that that's a cliche kind of thing, but like that is legitimate. Like that we brief certain things for a reason, because somebody has gotten hurt or somebody has gotten killed, or that just happens to be the best way that you can possibly do something. And attention to detail. I mean, just this is, for all intents and purposes, this is a fairly simple operation.
Yeah.
You jump
comparatively.
in. Yeah. You know what I mean? Compared to some of the things we do, this is simple. But I mean, we've been yapping about it for 38 minutes now. And
yeah.
And as you start going through it, you're like, man, there's a lot actually to think about. It's
right.
Pretty wild.
Yeah. 38 minutes and there's nothing wrong. Like imagine if we would have seen something to be like, oh man, so if we were critiquing it, which again, we're definitely not, but imagine if there was something wrong. Imagine if there was something we have to talk about. Imagine if this was an AAR where somebody did get hurt. Like again, 6 minutes worth of stuff. Yeah. So then we start getting some distance on this boat. You can see exactly how high up you are, like 450 time frame. So at like 455. Fun fact about the CV-22, there's a high speed and a low speed hoist function. You can see how far away they are from the water. There's 2 speeds on this hoist. So they're using the high speed function to get you through. You can see a little bit of turning at the end, but they're using that high speed function to get you up as fast as you possibly can. Because again, the CV-22 has to hover so high that they can't get you up. And you can see as they start to get towards the aircraft here, there is a little bit of a spin. So now you have to worry about, am I going to hit my head on this door? Am I doing the right thing? Where am I grabbing? You see the hoist really like 535. You can see that there's a big rubber piece there. Your hand also can't go above that piece because that piece feeds into the hoist. So you want to talk about the worst day ever. You're just trying to hold on to keep yourself upright and your hand is above that hoist. And that hoist will eat your hand. And that would really suck on the way into this aircraft.
Hey, you did everything right, except put your hand there.
Yeah, and you can see right at like 538, 539, you see that rubber ball go right up. It's a stopper for the hoist so that it doesn't pull the actual device, the hook, into the hoist and foul the hoist. You can see that it goes right up in there. Imagine having your hand in there squished in between, and it's a steel cable. Like everything on this plane, the CV-22 itself was designed to kill you, but every single thing that we are doing can hurt or kill you. Every single thing, which is why, again, you're not going to understand when you're in a pipeline why people think it's so important that you tape a water bottle correctly, why it's so important that you all look the same, why you check your fins for dry rot, why you make sure every single piece of equipment is serviceable and it's clean. 38 gram cartridges, clean, lubed, not yet fired, all of these other things. Like you're going to hear these things through your pipeline. You'll be like, this is the dumbest thing. Why am I looking at it? Well, this is why. Because a slight lapse in your situational awareness, and now you don't have a hand, or now you're dead, or that hoist cable gets wrapped around one of your buddy's front, like arms at night, and you give the thumbs up, and the guy above you is like, okay, tight, they're ready to go, and like you could seriously injure or kill somebody.
Golly.
Yeah.
Sorry, just thinking about it.
What's that feeling like when you actually get back in that bird and your whole team gets back in there and you guys are done? What does that feel like?
Thank goodness. Yeah, it's one of those
wait a
things.
minute, not yet.
Yeah.
Is everybody okay?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's kind of like after a hard landing on whether it's water or land, you're just kind of like,
am I all right?
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I'm good. I'm good here.
My favorite story about like post jump and like, oh my God, are we okay? My very first jump back from my injury, we're doing a static line jump. It's out of a CH-47. It's down in Georgia. We have this huge cotton field, right? And it's beautiful. It's great. The jump master sees a red light. He goes back to spotting. And as soon as he goes back to spotting, the light turns green. And all of us are like, dude. And he looks up, and because it's a 47 jump, he looks up and he goes, oh, follow me. And he leaves. Well, another controller and I are at the very end of the stick. So we're the furthest away from the door. And the both of us are just like, there's no way I'm making this DZ, because people are walking out and jumping. And we're the two heaviest ones, because that's what we are at the back of the stick. So we were just like, here we go. So we get out, and sure enough, big, beautiful cotton fields below us, freshly plowed. Winds were basically to the foot. Like, you could get into the wind, but you were just going to drift where you drifted. That's what it was. There was no steer in the canopy that day. And he and I are headed directly towards the one hardball road that's in the middle of all of these fields. And the both of us are just like, oh, here we go. I hit after he did, but I watched him hit kind of, down to my left, and he just absolutely like hit a roll. And I was just like, oh no. So I hit same sort of thing. I hit the ground so hard. I was just like, I'm dead. I don't know what happened, but we got drug really close to one another. And I won't say his name, because I think he's still in. I think he's in North Carolina now. So I roll over, and I was like, dude, are you okay? And he was like, I think so. Because in my head, exactly. In my head, I was like, oh man, I saw him hit. Do I need to go to work right now? Because he's a controller. So I was like, man, do I have to go to work and do medicine right now? So I looked, and nothing was like broken, and I was not bleeding. So I was just like, all right, I got to get my mind right. I was like, dude, you okay? And he was just like, I think I'm good. So we get out of our stuff. It was funny, because later we ended up doing a free fall jump after that one. That went fine. We get back to the house, and we're just kind of talking about it. And my boy looks at me, and he was like, dude, it was funny as hell, because you were asking me if I was okay. You didn't sound okay. I was like, I wasn't okay, dude. I was like, yeah, I'm just struggling. I'm like, oh, are you all right? And he was like, it made me worry for you. He was like, I didn't know if I was going to have to treat you.
I'll be your PJ for the day.
Exactly. Yeah, it was bad. It was a bad one. But
I saw a video yesterday of a guy doing the toes, knees, face PLF.
Love it.
And I was like, I've been there. And like, you remember that time when it was a night jump and you hit hard and you have no idea what's going on, but you have like follow-ons. So you're just like, all right, let's go. And you finally like make it to the next morning, and like you can see everybody's faces, and everybody like just ate it when they landed. Everybody's like bleeding and stuff.
I don't know that we're motivating anybody to come join us now.
Yeah.
No, that's the good stuff though.
Yeah, exactly. There's PLFs, the parachute landing fall, and then there's PFLs, pretty effed up landings. You have a good number of those too.
Yeah. I mean, I'd rather do that than, hit a cow and have it poop on me after I hit a cow.
Have we told that story?
Still make cheap after that though.
Yeah, exactly.
Have we told that story on this podcast?
I thought we did, but there's really a lot of new listeners that hadn't gone back. So we'll close with that. Go ahead and tell it, Aaron, because I was in the aircraft still or something like that.
Yeah. So there we were. I won't say where we were, but we jumped on this one drop zone, and it had cows on it. And it was it was a huge drop zone. It was great. You could do, and there was a runway that was right next to it, so you could do multiple lifts. So we're jumping free fall. At the time, it was a weather guy. We jump out with the winds are right. It was like 17 or 18 knots, pretty much sustained. So again, the canopies that we were jumping, this was back in the MC4 days. So you weren't getting a whole lot of drive. It was pretty much get into the wind and maybe a little bit of forward drive, but you pretty much had what you got. You weren't turning. That was it. So as we're going, hilariously, there is a cow that is right underneath this guy, and he can see it coming from 200 feet away. He's into the wind. He can't move. So cows are really dumb for people that don't know. So he starts screaming at this cow. So it makes the event even better. Is there's this special operator in a free fall chute. Cow, get out of the way, cow. So he's coming down, and the cow is stupid. Like, he doesn't know. Cows can't put together free fall jumps. It's a stupid cow. So he has no idea what's going on. So the guy lands on the cow, and you can't make this up. So he, no kidding, landed on the only cow in the middle of his DZ, and it quite literally scared the crap out of the cow. So he hurt his ankle when he landed on the cow. Like, he rolled the shit out of his ankle. Couldn't do anything about it. Well, the cow was terrified, starts to get up and move, and poops. And because it was a high wind day, the chute started dragging the guy right through the cow poop. So we're all sitting over there on, like, we see it happen on the DZ, and we see the med truck go out and then come back. Well, the guy is the medic, old Doherty's, was driving the car, and not treating the guy. Like the guy was sitting in the back, and we were like, what happened? His face when he pulled up, because he's sitting on like the tailgate of the truck, his ankle is like sprained and he is just covered in cow crap. I mean, just the entire left side of his body and his face. He already knew that like he didn't have a change of clothes. That was another like 45-minute plane flight back to where we were going to get back home. And he just knew that he was going to have to sit in this crappy uniform after hitting a cow on the DZ. I don't know if I've ever laughed harder with a group of dudes in my life. Like this guy, like talk about adding insult to injury. Cause he's talking, we're like, what happened? He's like, oh, we'll talk about it. We're like, dude, what happened? So he's like, I was yelling at the cow couldn't move. Then I hurt myself. It pooped on me. And then I got drugged through the poop. I laugh like an idiot. I still laugh telling that story because it's hilarious.
And now he's a chief.
Shout out.
Well,
I would have just got out after that. I'm not re-upping ever again.
You gotta go, dog.
All right. Well, hope you guys enjoyed that. We hadn't done that before, and that was a really good video that was provided to me from a friend of ours. So I thought it'd be kind of cool to go through it. So hopefully you guys liked it. If you did, great. Leave us a review. Make sure you subscribe. Hit that notification button. If you didn't like it, well, tell us you didn't like it. That's fine too. Like whatever. Just leave it. Yeah.
Yeah, I got it.
Aaron's getting comments on this one anyway, and he hadn't even done anything wrong. So
I'm the feedback function. So just send it to me. Send it to the complaints department, baby. I got them.
Hurt feelings report. So anyway, for everybody out there, appreciate you joining us. We're out here.